Kicking off today, some surprising news from Texas Congressman Ron Paul. It came in a tweet this afternoon. He said, quote, "I have decided not to seek re-election to Congress," and had a link to the full story. It was published in his local newspaper, The Facts. Instead, he says he will focus his efforts on his presidential campaign. Now, this is important for many reasons. In 2010, Congressman Ron Paul won his seat with more than 80% of the vote in his district, the 14th district in Texas, and would almost certainly enjoy another victory in 2012 if, of course, he doesn't win the Republican nomination for president. The polls are not showing him anywhere near the top of the somewhat crowded field, but he did raise the second most out of all GOP presidential candidates who have reported second quarter totals. So, despite the naysayers, Representative Ron Paul seems to think the Republican nomination for president could be in his grasp. I spoke to Ron Paul just a short time ago, and I asked him how he came to this decision not to seek re-election. Here's his response.
Well, I didn't come to it lightly. I've been thinking about it for quite a few months, but thought that once I made my decision, it was appropriate to let my constituents know. So I did talk to the newspaper this morning and released that I would not run, and that I would not be, campaigning for two different offices. I would concentrate on just the presidential run.
Wondering if you've had any pushback from people who say, you've been serving us for nearly 24 years. If you don't win, the presidential office, we feel a little hurt that you're abandoning us. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, no, but I guess if I did, it would be flattery. But no, I haven't heard that. Of course, the announcement's only been out for a few months. But nobody's indispensable, that's what I know, so somebody will have to fill in, and I will miss being their congressman. I've been in that position for a long time.
And certainly another interesting fact about this Congress, the 112th Congress, you're serving with your son, of course, who's in the Senate, kind of an interesting thing. I want to switch gears, though, to your presidential campaign. Certainly, if you look at polls, you're not in the top, but your voice is being heard much more this time around. I know that back in 2008, that election, I remember, I think it was the summer of 2007, I was in Chicago at a music festival, and there were three guys walking around with the sign that says, "Who is Ron Paul?" I remember driving to Vegas from San Diego, looking at a hillside, that same question, who is Ron Paul, on the side of a hill. I don't think anyone's asking that question this time around. What do you think has changed in the 4 years that's made your name and your voice so much more prominent?
Well, I think a lot has happened. I think we got a lot of the message out 4 years ago, and people became aware of what I was saying, and it was met with a lot of resistance. It was not accepted. But because of what I was saying, it became important because the concerns I had for the economy were, bared out in what happened. We did have a financial crisis. The foreign policy has gone to the dogs. I mean, we're still at war. Wars are being added, and we're facing a bankruptcy. The Federal Reserve has been on the defensive because we pointed out that the Fed is so responsible for so much we've had. So the conditions of the country have changed dramatically, but the free market economists that I follow, they have been completely right on their concerns and what's happening. So it is a different world. The support is tremendous now compared to 4 years ago. And I think it's going to continue to build, and we're going to continue to work at it.
You say the conditions of the country have changed. Your message, though, seems to have stayed the same. You said some of these messages, some of these ideas that you brought forth 4 years ago were met with resistance. What specifically? I know that still you have the somewhat unpopular position, although changing rapidly, about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. What do you think are some of the messages that are really resonating the most with people?
Well, I think in all areas, when it comes to war, more people are skeptical. There's more votes now in the Congress to come home and bring our troops home from Iraq and Afghanistan, and surely not get another war started in Libya. So we've gained tremendous support there, and I think the people in the country are agreeing. When I talk about personal liberties, people are more worried now about the Patriot Act and how the Patriot Act is used to harass us at airports and pester us there in an attempt to pretend that they're defending us, and nobody really believes they're doing much good. But certainly on the economy and the Federal Reserve, that's where we've gained so much support, because we had talked about the financial bubble that existed, the housing bubble, and that there would have to be a correction. And certainly we're in the middle of that, but we still face a lot of problems. So I think people are paying attention to in all areas.
All right, so you're not running for another term, but you are still, working here in Washington on this term. Want to get your take on what we're seeing right now with these talks about raising the debt ceiling and sort of the back and forth. It's a hot day here in Washington, but it feels like 150 degrees if you kind of think about the mood and what's going on between the two parties here.
Yes, and they have a long way to go because they have no easy answers to this, because they're trying to solve a problem which they can't solve unless they change their whole ideas and notions about what government should do. What they don't want to give up on is being the policeman of the world. They don't want to give up on being the economic planner, and that the government's supposed to run the economy, and that they don't want to give up on the Federal Reserve. So therefore, they don't have any answers, and they don't understand the business cycle. They don't know that they are supposed to allow banks to go bankrupt, and they're supposed to cleanse the system of excessive debt and malinvestment. So they're just propping it up, and they're buying bad debt and dumping it on the taxpayers, and then they wonder why the recession doesn't end. So I'm not very confident that they're going to come up with a solution, and that's why they're in an impasse, because they're trying to say, well, maybe 10 years out we might cut some money, and that just won't work. They have to do something now, and they have to start talking about bringing our troops home and changing our monetary system, and not being bogged down in trying to pay for all these entitlements because there's just no money left.
And finally, Congressman, this is kind of a big decision, I would say, that you've made sort of regarding your presidential bid to decide not to run for Congress again, and as you said, not run for two offices at once. Can you give us some insight in terms of some of the other things that you're thinking about doing? I mean, it is still summer of 2011, but things are about to heat up. What other changes are you going to make? What else is going to happen? What will we see in terms of your presidential bid?
Of course, we're going to continue to do what we've been doing, and my job has always been to do what I've been doing for 30 years and talk about the changes that are necessary philosophically. And in the campaign itself, we'll continue to do more of what we've been doing, and that's where we've excelled, because we've had a small number of people at the beginning. Now the numbers keep growing exponentially, literally into the millions of people now that get mail from us. So we'll just continue to do what we're doing and stay as organized as possible. Next goal we have right now is to do well at the AIM straw vote, which is coming up in August. So that'll be one area that we're going to key in on now in the next month.
All right, U.S. Congressman Ron Paul talking about his decision not to run for another term in Congress. Certainly, Representative Paul, no matter what happens in 2012, I have a feeling that your message is going to continue to resonate with a whole lot of people. Thanks so much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.